I think you're going to like this one. This is a unusual situation for sure. I've actually worked on this tree in the past, quite a few times in the past. About 8 or 10 years ago, I think it was, I pulled the decking off this base of this tree for the previous owner, and now the new owner is having me come out and do some deadwooding and major work. I did take off that one lower limb because we couldn't even get our truck underneath this tree. But this is just a massive big valley oak, Quercus lobata. And the valley oaks are not super common, but they're one of the major oak trees that we have in our area. And they've got an unusual characteristic. The branches, they kind of twist and turn, and they go every which way. And almost like snakes. It's pretty cool. So anyway, there was a lot of major deadwood up here. It's kind of hard to see in these images here. But some of these big dead pieces were ready to just break off and come crashing down in an area where people park their cars. But the big issue, and here is the big issue, this tree has been in a very awkward environment for a big part of its life. So clearly the grade was raised, which means that they added fill and a driveway all the way around this tree. And like I said before, there was a deck that went right up to the base of this tree. And I advised the previous owner that in order to see what's going on down there, we must remove the deck. So I did that, and I was kind of shocked. So the previous owner did not want to remove the tree. And the new owner clearly loves this tree, but I'm not quite sure. You know, I've been wearing the Protos helmet now for almost 10 years, made by Fanner PFA and NER, and I really like this helmet. But, you know, somebody commented on my YouTube channel that I look like a stormtrooper from Star Wars. So this helmet's getting pretty beat up. The screen's got all kinds of holes in it, and I taped it up, and it's torn on the edges, and the muffs are getting all tattered and torn, and it's just looking all beat up, so I opted to buy a new one. I decided not to go with a stormtrooper look anymore. I wanted to go more Darth Vader. Well, not really Darth Vader, but I don't know, I figured I wouldn't go with the white anymore. Interestingly, the new helmet does fit quite a bit better, all the components. And there's a few differences. You know, they changed out, they used to have a different, oh, here it is. See, the bottom had this little honeycomb inside here, and now they've got a piece of foam, which they say was to meet ANSI standards, but honestly, that other one looks like it's better built. It's kind of an expensive helmet. If you shop around, you can find it for $250, but a lot of people sell it for $280 to $350. I've even seen it for over $400. You can get them with the radios inside. They're pretty good units. All right, there's my new look. Oh, the screen fits so much better. The muffs, beautiful. I can't hear a thing. And I do recognize there's replacement parts, and I did order a new set of muffs for this helmet here, but the screen is like, you know, after you buy the muffs and the screen and everything, you might as well almost buy a new helmet. Anyway, new fashion statement. All right, enough of the product endorsement. Let's get back to work. This tree had 13 cables in it. 13 cables was tying this whole mess together. So obviously somebody in the past, I didn't do any of these cables, somebody in the past recognized this, and they doubled a lot of them up. So I don't know about this tree. You know, I'm doing what I can do today, and here, let me talk a little bit about making a proper cut. You want to retain the branch collar. That's beyond the branch bark ridge. And that's what a proper cut should look like. I always tell people, make the smallest diameter cut you can without leaving a really pronounced stub. And in some cases, a little bit of a stub is better than what they call a flush cut. Now, the deadwood in this tree, much of it was full of fungus. And a lot of people say, do you have to take the deadwood out? Well, for a couple of reasons. The deadwood in this tree just releases and comes crashing down. So it's a big hazard. But the second reason is the fungus, it goes down the wood and gets into the main portion of the trunk. I want you to take a look at all these cables. I was blown away, and it actually made it really difficult to maneuver around in this tree. You can't just, tie in and fly around because you keep hitting these damn cables. There's another cut that I made, and this was totally dead. This tree, by the way, I made an attempt to count the rings on some of these cuts, and they're really hard to count clearly, but I believe this tree is over 150 years old. And I checked many of the cables, the ones I could access from the bucket truck, and both of these cables are, they're about right. There's a little bit of play in them. I'm not plucking a high C here when I pull it. It's got a bit of movement, and I think that's important. Like I said before, I don't know who did the cables, but there are so many areas of question. If you look closely at this area here, you can see right through that decay pocket there. Look at that little hole in the center. There we go. And that goes all the way through, so there's a lot of decay in there. Today's job was just major deadwood. But when I get up in a tree, I want to inspect the tree to the best of my ability. This is just a visual inspection. I'm getting up there. I'm tugging on the cables. I'm trying to get a better idea of what's going on in the tree. I try to give the client the best educated evaluation that I can based upon what I can see. These cables here, they're not too bad. That one's a little bit tighter, but note there's 3 cables coming over to this side. 1, 2, 3, and there's 4 and 5 coming from that one center piece. So that one center piece is basically, if that thing breaks, all those cables are going to fail and this tree is going to self-destruct. So it's like the cables are holding up other cable parts that I don't get it. I think this tree was way overdone, and there's a spot where there was 2 cables on the same connection point. So back up in the bucket, I like to give people a bird's eye view from what it looks like from up here, but you can see the root system is actually going into the concrete. I've talked a lot about this, I call it a mandozer. Highly recommend you build one from a pitchfork. Here we are. Here's the overview of the tree again. Been working on it for a while. Got a lot of major deadwood out. Had to do a lot of roping because of the asphalt. But I'm just blown away. The base of this tree. I kept looking at all the areas that were decayed, and many of these roots were raised. And I got down up underneath the tree, and I got my camera inside because I wanted to see what was going on down in here. And if you started the video out, you saw I was actually able to climb in underneath the tree. I was actually inside the trunk of the tree for part of it. There's some decayed roots over here. This root grows right into the cement. Anyway, we did a lot of roping. I can't tell you how much I love these rings. We've got a whole set of them. It just reduces the friction and it prevents damage to the bark when you're roping. I didn't show that because I had to make the cut. Nobody was doing my video work for me. I feel like I'm sometimes making excuses why I don't catch all the shots. But I'll tell you, my primary job is tree work. And I try to catch some of the stuff that we do with video, but it is what it is. This cable is as tight as can be. It was way, way overstretched. And when I look up into the canopy of the tree and I see so many cables that are interconnected throughout the entirety of this tree, I have to wonder, first off, who did this? When was it done? Obviously, it was done more than once. There's evidence of an old cable installation, and I don't even know how that was working. There's a through rod of some sort that attached a cable. This one right here is fairly loose. You have to ask yourself, is it even necessary now? Well, maybe it is keeping this branch from stretching. And once again, you have to remember that the tree just leafed out and it does not have the weight of all the acorns on it. So all these weights adjust differently by the seasons. This is a deciduous tree. It loses all of its leaves, so it gets considerably lighter. And then when it completely fills out and near the end of the summer when the acorns are on there, it gets considerably heavier. So my job was to do all the deadwooding that we could on this monster tree from the bucket. I knew I wouldn't have time to get out to the very center of the tree and tie in. As it was a big job. It was a lot of movement. And as I said before, maneuvering around all these cables with the bucket meant, constantly moving the truck around. But this small truck and this smaller bucket, I can reach up there about 40 feet or so. It does enable me to get into some pretty tight spots, whereas the larger bucket would not be able to maneuver the same way that I can, because I can get underneath the tree and go up. So Jorge switched off with me now, and I got to show you a little bit about his masterful use of the pole saw. We had a big dead piece that we did want to get out that was beyond our reach, and he said, I can get it with the pole saw. Turned out it was about a 6-inch diameter cut, and he was able to get it. I'm sorry I didn't get that on video because I was too busy doing the roping. But at one point I did get down with my camera and I went inside the tree to show you just how decayed this old beast is. And how long it's been decayed is anybody's guess. Okay, so a lot of you are going to watch this video and say, I wouldn't keep that tree. That tree is just too dangerous. And why don't you cut that tree? Well, I don't have the option of making those decisions. I can tell the client that I don't feel good about the tree. I can tell the client that I see hazards in the tree, but it's not my job to say this tree has got to go. I have to be very, very careful because, this tree has lived this way for a long, long time. But I do know that eventually it's going to fail or it's going to be removed. Now, that is up to the owner of the tree to make that decision. All I can do is advise him. And I did. I made it very clear. He saw me under the roots of that tree. Hey, thanks again for watching my videos, and please subscribe if you're not subscribed. Hit the thumbs up, and I guess there's a little bell thing that tells you when I put out a new video. I don't know, I'm not that YouTube savvy, but I sure do hope you enjoy my channel.